Okay. Turn that page, readers. We are entering into a new ice age of political conservatism.
Libraries are like the adventure playgrounds of creativity and of knowledge. From them stems all our sense of possibility, our sense of self, really. If you strip them away, you take away our dignity.
The dissemination of knowledge is the cornerstone of civilization.
A library isn't a luxury, but one of the necessities of life.
20 years ago, I started the big issue to help the homeless to help themselves. I myself was homeless. I slept on the streets of London. I'm an ex-offender. I learned to read and write in prison, and I've used libraries all my life. I don't accept the fact that you can tear the nervous system out of a community, which is what libraries are, and call yourself a person who is doing the job for the community.
If they closed Shepton, we wouldn't be able to afford to get to Wells Library, because I found out it's £15.95 for four of us to travel on a bus for 4 returns from Shepton to Wells. And we wouldn't be able to go shopping at the same time because we'd have heavy library books to carry back. So it would be all that money just for library, which is such a shame. And they're just very intelligent children. They love reading, and we just couldn't believe it might be closing, so please don't close it.
I don't know what your childhood was like, but we didn't have much money. On a Saturday night, we'd go to the movies, and on a Wednesday night, my parents would walk us to the library. It was such a big deal to go in and get my own book. That was a quote by Robert Redford.
Libraries are an essential part of our way of life. We have to keep them open. We have to make sure that we do not close those doors and that they stay open, because if we close them, I fear they never will open again.
I was born into a single-parent family. We lived on what was then called national assistance, would now be called benefit. So, of course, there were no books in the house. And every week, I remember very clearly when I was 6, my mother and I would go to the local library and climb up the awesome stone staircase. And then we would come away with our full complement of books each, 6 each. And I think if I hadn't had that experience, I would never have become a writer.
If they do close the libraries, people won't be able to get an education to be able to pay money back into the system.
I'm completely pissed off about the fact that they're trying to close our local library. I've been using our library for 50, 60 years perhaps, and used it for collecting books from all over the country, sourcing books, and writing local history. Without that library, I don't suppose I'd have written a word.
I don't come from an advantaged background. I'm dyslexic. That wasn't picked up at school, and free access to libraries enabled me to fill in the gaps that my basic education missed. Since those days, I've been lucky enough to go on and to study at university, to gain a degree, to gain professional qualifications, and without the basic guide around the library that our local librarian gave me as a child, I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Closing our library is cultural vandalism.
And not since the Great Library of Alexandria was burned to the ground has there been such a gross act of cultural vandalism.
When I was a boy, my parents' idea of what constituted a good book was the Radio Times, and I got all my learning and knowledge from the public library.
I've been using Glastonbury Library for the last 16 years, and I'm passionate about education, and I do many adult education courses that are really important to me, and the resources there are absolutely wonderful.
To be or not to be?
Must we close the library?
That is the question.
No books or internet connection.
Whether 'tis nobler in the mind.
Whatever will I find?
To suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles.
Just my broken dreams amidst the rubble.
And by opposing end them.
What then? Please don't close the library.
From the early Middle Ages onwards, Glastonbury Library was renowned amongst the abbeys of medieval Europe.
Scholars came from far and wide to study in what was known internationally as a town of erudition and learning. We lost that library. We are about to lose another.
I went to a school with a wonderful library, actually, and it had these sort of separate cubicles where you did your prep. So, of course, the great thing was to get in quick and bag one, you know, so you weren't on the central table. And I do remember that that was a sort of precursor of university to me, because when you were in the library doing your prep and you got your cubicle, you were self-motivated. You were autonomous. You were not in a class being told what to do. You were actually working on your own pace and doing it according to your own kind of timing. And I loved that.
I really love libraries because I live in a rural place, and for a long time I didn't have the internet. I've just got it set up recently.
We had a public meeting in the town on Friday of last week, and we heard from the Deputy Leader of Somerset County Council that they're currently paying interest of £36 million a year on a capital debt of £365 million. This is a rate in excess of 9% over base rate. If the County Council could sort out their borrowing costs to a level that other people, including myself, are paying, and I don't have the resources of the County Council, it would produce a saving of £28 million a year. That would pay for a few libraries, wouldn't it?
It seems to me that public libraries are an island of civilization in our commercial high streets. To start to demolish them is basically to say our culture is not important, or at least less important than Starbucks.
I spent half my childhood in libraries and first found myself wanting to write poetry when I read the Oxford Book of Ballads, and it was a library book. And I'm shocked, though not wholly surprised, by the deep passion with which this government seems to want to attack the arts and the humanities.
The former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher resisted cuts to the library service and charges back in the 80s. And so I feel this is a really retrograde step that the County Council are trying to make at the moment.
I've lived all over the UK in lots of different places and have always been able to walk to a public library.
It has to be stopped. It will save a small amount of money now, but let's look to the future. Let's look to what do the young people in Shepton do? Where do they go? How do they learn? If their family don't have those resources there for them, what can Shepton offer them? And at the moment, very little. If you close the library, nothing.
The libraries should definitely be saved because they'd be taking away a community hub that many people of all ages rely on.
We need libraries. A library is the centre of the community, centre of the daisy wheel. You pull out the pin, the community implodes.
It was a magical place. It was my favourite place in the town. It was better than the park, and it was full of other people's dreams and imaginings, full of stories.
I'm a chartered librarian with many years' experience in public libraries in other parts of the country. I feel that a cut in libraries and the move towards volunteer libraries is insulting to the profession of librarianship.
Are you crazy?